We now know that the Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner's cryptic warning about a serious national security threat has to do with Russia developing a space-based anti-satellite weapon that would violate a treaty banning nuclear weapons in space. The White House has updated the public this afternoon.
This is not an active capability that's been deployed. And though Russia's pursuit of this particular capability is troubling, there is no immediate threat to anyone's safety.
And joining us now to break this all down is Margaret Brennan, CBS News Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent and, of course, moderator of Face the Nation. Margaret, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. So Kirby was saying that he has some pretty broad concerns about declassifying some of this information. What exactly is he concerned about?
Well, and exactly. You don't often see John Kirby put his glasses on and read from a statement, but he's trying to hit very specific, cleared, declassified talking points. There's very limited amount of information they can disclose at this point. One of the reasons, he said, was because the intelligence community only arrived at a higher degree of confidence in its assessment within the past few weeks, and disclosing it would reveal risk, sources, and methods. But what he indicated was that this has to do with the 1967 treaty that has to do with nuclear weapons in space. So we know there's some nuclear component to what this technology development out of Russia is about. But what we know for a fact is that this classified, compartmented intelligence was shared in that classified setting, a SCIF, with the House Intelligence Committee members. That was cleared by the Director of National Intelligence for that information to be shared in that limited setting. They then went into private, were so concerned by what they learned that on a bipartisan basis voted 23-1 to say more lawmakers need to know about this because they felt it needed to be dealt with policy-wise, that it couldn't just be closely held information. It was of such high level of concern that others needed to know about it. So in terms of what was shared today with that gang of four, just the top leaders, the national security advisor came to answer some questions. And we know that at the tail end of that, they will also brief the Senate at the end of the month.
Yeah, and that's happened this afternoon, and leaders are coming out and addressing. If Russia were actually to deploy such a weapon, I know the White House is saying that this is still kind of a far-off idea. If this were actually to happen, is the U.S. prepared for this kind of event?
Well, and that's the argument for declassification, or at least not with the public, sharing that information with other lawmakers, right? That's what the Intelligence Committee members, both the ranking and the chair. So Democrats and Republicans are saying this is serious, this needs to be dealt with, and sharing that information with other lawmakers allows for that next conversation. What do we do about it to happen? And so this would indicate that they need some congressional approval or appropriations or some sort of policy for lawmakers to be part of. What I know from our reporting is that this has to do with the Cosmos program. This is a Russian program that has to do with launches carrying top secret payloads that the Ministry of Defense has approved and said that they are conducting. The specifics of that are where we are stuck right now. But that what has been described to me by lawmakers, by policymakers, by weapons experts is that this needs to be discussed for that question of how does it challenge America's dominance, that geostrategic balance of power. And that's why it matters. And Speaker Johnson said that he wrote a letter last month asking to meet with the President of the United States about it. That's how Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, ended up on Capitol Hill today.
Interesting. A lot of fast-moving parts here. You also spoke with Jen Easterly, who is the director of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. What did she have to say about this?
Well, the director spoke with me about her recent trip to Ukraine and that concern broadly about Russia and the threat it poses. I did ask her, as did many others there today, other journalists, about this weaponization of space and this new disclosure. She couldn't get into the details, but she said, don't look at these things in a vacuum. The war in Ukraine should be seen as this broader indication of Russia's intent and threat. Take a listen.
I think it just further reinforces the fact that Russia is a very real threat. It's a threat to U.S. national security. It's a threat to global security. It's a threat to all of our critical infrastructure. We know space is a key piece of that. And it just reinforces the point that we cannot do anything that further empowers Putin and his ability to, if Ukraine falls, his ability to then go into Europe.
So Easterly oversees the agency that really tries to protect U.S. infrastructure. Just think about how interconnected satellites are, technology is with the basic infrastructure that not just the government has something to do with, but the private sector and what you and I, use on a daily basis in terms of technology. So this broader threat of Russia being willing to just blow past norms, international treaties. There's a reason John Kirby brought it up, this idea. The world agreed not to do this, and Russia, we think, is doing this for a reason, because of those continued challenging of international laws and norms.
Yeah, and I think that's so accessible to everyday Americans who would be concerned about this. But interesting to see her kind of connect the dots at a time that Republicans in Congress, of course, are pushing back, very critical of funding for Ukraine.
Well, at least the speaker won't entertain the vote,
Exactly.
right, on that national security supplemental. So very much of the moment.
Exactly. Margaret Brennan, thank you so much, as always, for your reporting. We appreciate that.